into the Sean podcast. We are very excited to see you. Welcome to our conclusion of our mock draft mayhem week, where me and Sean here are going to do a mock for the entire draft. We've already done the first half. Before we get into our recap, Sean, let the people know how your weekend was.
My weekend, man, I did some cleaning. It wasn't very exciting, not gonna lie. Not very exciting. Did some cleaning, some stuff around the house. Started looking into the draft a little bit more. We are just a shade over a week away at this point from the first round of the draft, and I am super excited for it. So we're gonna finish off our alternating mock draft, our dueling mock drafts tonight with the second half of that first round. But we gotta prepare you for next week. Next week, we're gonna do a mock draft individually for the first 16 picks.
Yep, Sean has a comprehensive scoring system, like always.
Sure do. Oh, I got to make things complicated, okay? I can't make it easy. It's got to be complicated.
Let's see which one of us is going to win. Sean normally takes this one, which is okay because I've been dominating him in our wrestling pick'em. So hey.
But that's the other pod. That's the other pod,
Hey, I just I'm just saying. All right. Let's jump right into this. We're going to recap what we did last week. That pod is out there, so if you'd like to check it out. So, here are our picks from last week. So, Sean had the odds, I had the evens. So, Sean went with, obviously, Trevor Lawrence.
No-brainer.
From Clemson for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I went with who I think is going to be picked, which is Zach Wilson, QB, BYU for the New York Jets. Sean threw curveball here.
Boom.
No Mac Jones for the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, it's some Justin Fields action. Quarterback out of Ohio State. Then, the big one for the draft. Atlanta Falcons get their QB of the future, Trey Lance, North Dakota State. Then we got Cincinnati. Sean's got them taking Penny Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon, which leaves me to take Jamar Chase of LSU for Miami. Moving on. Next, we've got Detroit Lions. Sean takes Devonta Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama.
Heisman winning Devonta Smith. Put some respect on it.
Please, back up, son. Then I take Kyle Pitts, generational talent Kyle Pitts, for the Carolina Panthers, tight end out of Florida.
The
now
unicorn.
The slide ends for Mr. Mac Jones.
Michael McCorkle. Okay.
Okay. QB out of Alabama going to Denver. That'll be an interesting competition there. Then for my Dallas Cowboys, I select Patrick Surtain II, cornerback out of Alabama. Then Sean throws a little wrench in there. The New York Giants take Rashawn Slater, offensive lineman out of Northwestern, which I have seen people have this pick, so on the right track there. Then Philly takes J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Moving on. The Los Angeles Chargers take what's his name?
Elijah Vera Tucker.
Out of USC, offensive lineman again. He can play multiple positions. Then Minnesota gets Jalen Phillips, edge out of Miami. New England gets Micah Parsons, middle linebacker out of Penn State, who can also play on the line. And Arizona takes Caleb Fairley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. Now, Sean, any thoughts on our top 16 there?
Thoughts? I have a feeling when I do my mock draft for our game, it's going to look quite a bit different than what we have here.
Mine's going to look a little different.
Yeah, it's going to look a little different. It's nice to see the offensive linemen going. We have 3 in the top 16. We only have 2 wide receivers taken.
True. 3 pass catchers.
3 pass catchers. We got, all 5 quarterbacks off the board? We got all 5 off the board in the top 10.
Corners.
We do, yeah. I'm a little surprised, but I shouldn't be, with Minnesota, you picking Jalen Phillips. Not like I don't like the pick just because Minnesota's in the division of the Packers. I don't like that pick, right? Because I'm really high on Jalen Phillips. He wasn't my number 1 edge. I think he was your number 1 edge. Kwity Paye was my number 1.
No,
that's the whole thing about this edge. Okay. So here we are, and he was the only edge taken.
Well, here's the thing.
And
He's
he wasn't
not my
top.
number 1 edge, but my number 1 edge is acquired taste.
And that's the thing about a lot of these defensive players.
But he's the most. Remember, we both said.
Oh yeah.
If the medicals check out, he is the number 1 edge for both of us. If the medicals check out.
But when we were doing our rankings, we didn't have all this information, and we don't even have all the medicals. So again, if we haven't emphasized before in our previous episodes, we're 2 amateur dudes, right? 2 amateur opinions. That's what we got. That's what we're throwing at you. We hope you enjoy.
Because Minnesota does not have a bookend.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
When there's smoke, there's fire, and I hear there's a lot of smoke with Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, I think I heard the rumor that he's trying to request a trade, or he wants out of Minnesota, which is really going to create a big opening on that line. And not that I mind, because the weaker they are on defense, the better my team has against them, right? So I don't mind that. But you're thinking you got to add some support there, whether Danielle Hunter is playing or not. You need somebody there. And then we only had a total, actually not a total, but the first defensive player on our dueling mock went at number 10. And that would be
change much.
And that would be the lowest a defensive player has ever gone, like the first defensive player. Because back in 1999, you had Champ Bailey get selected by the then Washington Redskins, I think, at number 7. And since then, that's been the latest a defensive player has come off the board, is number 7.
Champ had a pretty good career, though.
He did. But it just shows that, this draft is so offensive heavy that it's going to be pushing all of that defensive talent back. So a team like Minnesota will greatly benefit from that. A team like Dallas will greatly benefit from that.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then we have, 3 offensive linemen off in the top 16. And I have a feeling it's going to create maybe a little bit of a run. Maybe.
No, let's see what happens now.
Yeah, should we just jump into the rest of our picks?
Oh, yeah, let's jump right in.
All right.
Straight to the deep end, head first.
All right. Here we go. So. Number 17. We have the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm still continuing with the odd numbers. So I've got the Raiders pick. Now, the Raiders need help all over their defense, right? They're looking for secondary help. They weren't able to address that much or at all during free agency. But it does seem like there are some veterans available that they could work on signing either right before the draft or shortly after the draft. You're thinking your big names out there are Richard Sherman, Casey Hayward, some names floating out there. So does that mean that Las Vegas has to but have to grab someone for their secondary right here? No, not really. No. I mean,
and
they can also find...
really needs the help. There's nobody that you would, I think, take this early, and that's safety.
Yeah. I think when we did our safety series that people may or may not have heard. Uh, Trayvon Morrig was the number one safety on both of our boards, but he was the only one who had really a first-round grade.
So
What's
there
that?
is something freed up on that defensive line. They released Mo Hurst.
They did, yeah. I mean, they got holes all over the defense.
They released Arden Key. Not that he was doing too much.
But again, it's a body, it's a spot that they still have to fill.
But
what we're doing here, right? You can find quality defensive players in this draft on day 2. So I don't think they have to go for a defensive player right here. So in this draft, I'm choosing to address a need that they created by either trading or releasing 80% of their offensive line. Now they got Richie Incognito back, so he's back in town. But they
Colt
still have.
Miller.
He's always been in town. They didn't release him. They actually gave him an extension. Good for him. But they need somebody else on that line too, because Derek Carr has to be able to stand up long enough to throw the ball, right? He doesn't want to suffer the same fate that his brother David did back in the day with the Houston Texans, where he's getting sacked like 50 times a year. So, the number 17 pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech.
Ooh, nice.
Yep, got to keep that. Got to help create a stronger offensive line. And you can do that with a nice pairing of Colton Miller and Christian Darrisaw. All right, so that brings you to Miami at number 18. Now, if we remember from before, Miami already addressed their wide receiver position when you took Jamar Chase at number 6.
They did.
Yeah. Now, Miami needs some help on the offensive line. They could also use some help on defense in the form of an edge rusher, and also at different spots of the defense too. So what are you thinking with Miami Dolphins, number 18?
Right. So with Miami, I could go offensive line here. I mean, you can never do enough to protect to give them time to stand back there and like whip it into somebody. I've already addressed pass catchers, so not doing that. I know a lot of Miami fans want Najee Harris here. They don't think he's going to be there come later on when they pick. They don't like a Travis Etienne. They want a guy who can catch the ball. But what is Brian Flores' bread and butter? Oh, it's defense, is it not?
He's a defensive guy.
So my thoughts are, let's shore up this defense. And I mean, he's a Bill Belichick type guy. So let's give him a Bill Belichick type player. And I'm going to give him Zaven Collins out of Tulsa.
Nice. I like this pick, but at the same time, I don't like it because that means he won't be available for Green Bay at the end of the first round. So,
whoops,
man. Good pick. I like it. I think I spoke highly of him when we did our off-ball linebacker series. I really like him. He was in my top 5. I think he was my number 4 guy. I'd have to go back and double check, but definitely in the top 5.
That, actually.
He could have. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
I mean, the beauty of him is they're going to use him in multiple areas. Rushing the passer, off ball. He's going to be that Kyle Vanoy type guy.
He was my number 2. How could I forget? He was my number 2 guy.
I told you. I knew he was higher.
It feels like forever since we did that linebacker series.
But yeah, he's going to be that Kyle Vanoy type guy with those long arms, cutting down those lanes for passing, being able to wrap up running backs. It's kind of like making sure that the running backs aren't going to be able to catch the ball at the backfield. This guy's going to be a chess piece that Brian Flores would love to have.
And so the Green Bay Packers. I'm speaking for them.
Sorry, Green Bay.
So the Green Bay Packers.
Moving
I know.
on.
They'd have to jump up quite a bit to grab them, but we're not mocking any trades in this draft here. All right, moving on
to a team that Sean has no animosity towards whatsoever.
you know, the Washington team that released Alex Smith, who has now retired. So, Alex Smith, congratulations on a great career. I think you should, or the NFL should definitely rename the Comeback Player of the Year after you because of everything that he came back from. So, huge inspiration to all.
Come back from quite a bit.
He did. Oh my goodness. We're not going to get into that now, but to the team that released him, let's go ahead and talk about who they're picking. Tempted to give him like some guy from the 7th round, but I actually did a legit pick here. So, all right. They have a bridge quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the top 5 quarterbacks are off the board already. So you're not going to reach for a quarterback here. You're not going for a Davis Mills, or you're reaching really high for Kellen Mond. I think that would be a foolish thing to do, especially. Yeah, you can get those guys on day 2, so you shouldn't be reaching here, right? Now, they have a hole at left tackle where Trent Williams used to be. So you're thinking, man, maybe they need a solid tackle on the left side, but we're looking at...
Tevin Jenkins is on the board.
He is, but he's more of a right tackle. I don't know how I feel about that one. So when I'm looking at it, Sewell went off the board at number 5 to Cincy. Slater went off the board at number 11 to the Giants. Vera Tucker went to the Chargers at 13. Darrisaw just went to the Raiders at 17. So Washington's sitting here like, man, we really don't have that tackle available.
Cosme this early?
Maybe Cosme, maybe a Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. Like, could we see a little bit of a run on the tackles? We might, because some of these teams drafting between the mid-teens and the mid-20s, they have need at offensive line, but I don't like the value here. So other immediate needs are on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where I want to focus. Now, Ron Rivera, even dating back to his days with the Carolina Panthers, has a history of drafting defensive players in the first round, so it's not going to be a surprise when I make this pick. Now, the defensive line is doing pretty good. Just got Chase Young last year. So here, I think we're going to add a little bit of support to that second level. We're going to look at maybe a hybrid player. And remember, Ron Rivera was one of the first to draft one of those hybrid linebacker safety players in Shaq Thompson back in 2015. With the 19th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Washington team that shall remain nameless because they released Alex Smith are selecting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker, Notre Dame.
There it is, people. There it is.
There it is. You're welcome, Washington.
And I mean, Ron Rivera should be one of the types of guys to make this particular selection work. The only thing I'll say is that defense was already pretty darn good. That offense, we'll see what happens, because that's where the issues are. Ryan Fitzpatrick or not.
Yeah, I mean, could you see Washington sneak with another wide receiver here, even though they have Terry McLaurin and they just got Curtis Samuel? Could you see them try and sneak for another wide receiver? Absolutely. If not, you're looking to address offensive line. Tight end might be too early to take here because your next best tight end is going to be Pat Freiermuth, and he's a second-round talent. So they're getting JOK. They'll be okay.
See, I don't know if he is a second-round talent. I think Pitts is such a good talent. It's made Freiermuth look like a second-round talent.
He's done. Pitts has done so well that that separation between the two is larger than what it should be. Because in any other draft, you're thinking Freiermuth may be going in the first round without question.
Right. All right. Here's my first wrench of the pod.
And he's picking for the Chicago Bears. So Bears fans, turn up the volume a little bit more. He's throwing a wrench your way.
Hey, Bears fan, I'm channeling my inner Ryan Pace. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at Ryan Pace. He's going
to draft Kyle Trask, or he's going to draft Davis Mills.
So, all right. So here's the thing. The Bears, on defense, they're still solid, even though they're getting older and they keep signing older players. So the Bears could easily try to find someone here. There's plenty of guys. Aziz Al-Warley. I know I pronounced his name wrong, but help get that pass rush younger. Maybe get like a Christian Barmore, get that defensive line younger. Maybe get someone in the secondary. They need corners now because they just let what was it, Kyle Fuller?
Yeah, Kyle Fuller just gone.
Just stroll over to Denver.
Yeah.
There could be offensive line that they could get here, but Allen Robinson does not want to be a Bear. They franchised him. They're going to have to trade this guy. This is a combustible situation. Now, no, I know Jalen Waddle's on the board. And I know Bear fans are screaming their heads off. But remember, this is not Sean Usher making this pick. This is Ryan Pace. And Ryan Pace's mind, he's going to get a replacement for Allen Robinson. Not a compliment. Not a guy who can do more dynamic stuff. A guy who's exactly like it. Now, no, this is not a bad player. It's just it won't be Jalen Waddle. So, with the 20th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Bears select Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota. Now, this guy is a very good player. He'll be very productive, big body. He's got really good speed for his size. Great catch, great at the point of attack. But it's just it's still bad management by the Bears. Don't shoot me. Shoot your management. If you had a different GM, I would have taken Jalen Waddle.
All right, so we're staying in the Midwest for the 21st pick with the Indianapolis Colts. Now, major need for the Colts is going to be left tackle, where Anthony Costanzo had retired and just created that opening. So you're thinking, if one of those left tackles fall to him, you're looking at Indianapolis like hey, we got to find a left tackle. But it's pretty similar to Washington, number 19. Is one of them going to be worth taking here? Is there that value? So maybe later on they're looking at that free agent market, because you still have players like Alejandro Villanueva on free agency. You even have players like Eric Fisher who's out there. So maybe they try and shore up that left tackle free agency if they're not able to do it later on, maybe day 2, day 3. So they need the help at edge rusher, and this class is pretty deep with edge. So if they don't take one here, one could be available in the second round to them. So Chris Ballard, Frank Reich, they're sitting across the room from one another, and they're looking at each other like, did the Bears really just pass on Jalen Waddle? They're looking at themselves like, is this a dream? Did the Bears really just pass on Waddle, who arguably, who has been considered by some the number 1 wide receiver in this class?
They would be
and at
wrong,
this point,
but he is high up there.
They would be wrong, right? But he's high. And most of the time you're seeing him top 3 high. When you talk about top 3 wide receivers, you're talking no particular order, right? Chase, Smith, Waddle. They're in the top 3 wide receivers. And here we have Bateman just snuck into that 3rd spot. So Waddle's just sitting on the board, even though Indianapolis could choose to reach for a tackle. They could choose to address that defensive line. Do you really? Do you want to pass on Jalen Waddle? I mean, you just got Carson Wentz. You got to give him somebody to throw to. You have Michael Pittman Jr. in there. Good. You got T.Y. Hilton. I think you brought him back on a 1-year deal, so he may not be there for a long time. It may just be one final year for him before he moves on. So you're thinking, all right, we got to add some offensive weapons here, because
understudy.
We got to put, we can do a push to the playoffs this year. And I hope they do, because if we remember from one of the first episodes, I had them picked to go to the playoffs this year. So With the 21st pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts are running that card up, and they are selecting Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, Alabama.
And all the Bears fans are like saying words that I will not say right now.
Yeah, my mom's listening. Don't say those words.
All right, so I think it's an interesting pick. It could work out really well, and I mean it's forward thinking is what it is for real.
Yeah, I mean it almost reminds me of how C.D. Lamb fell a little bit in last year's draft. And Dallas is sitting there like, we'd be foolish to let this guy get past us, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Believe it or not, from what I understand, he was the only receiver that they felt that way about.
Yeah, it worked out for Dallas. In this scenario, it's going to work out for the Colts.
I love that they stick it to Philly also with that. Anyways, moving on. We have the Tennessee Titans up. So Tennessee, I mean, they've got a wide receiver hole now. They may have an offensive line hole now. And a corner hole now because, they just let Adoree Jackson just walk out the door.
Desmond King, Adoree Jackson, and Malcolm Butler all gone.
Yeah, nonsense.
Yeah, they got Janoris. Oh, did they get Jenkins or? I think they got somebody to fill in the secondary, but only one. They got holes. Yeah.
With all that said, I'm gonna go with a particular position that they've been trying to shore up forever and a day, and that would be pass rusher.
The Jadeveon Clowney experiment didn't work last year?
No, it did not. They've had issues for the longest time. Jadeveon Clowney, Harold Landry. This is not working out. So, with the 22nd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, I give them Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari, thank you. I just do it so people can make fun of me. Edge rusher out of Georgia. I think it's part of the entertainment. People love making fun of how I pronounce these names.
Okay, I'll let you keep messing up then. Don't worry.
Well, you're the fixer here. I pronounce it wrong, and then you tell me what I did wrong.
Oh. So did you hear what Jadeveon Clowney said? I think it was just this past week about why he didn't perform so well in Tennessee. Did you hear anything about that?
I did not, but
yeah, it was part of an interview. He just said he wasn't comfortable in Tennessee. He was blaming the scheme fits. He was blaming his knee for some of the struggles. So there you go. Scheme fit and his knee. Well, better luck in Cleveland's.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, he'll get better luck in Cleveland because he doesn't have to be the man. Here's the thing: he had actually some pretty good years in Houston when he didn't have to be the man. He had dudes around him.
He did, yeah.
Tennessee doesn't. Harold Landry's not the man.
Tennessee had no dudes, okay? They had no dudes.
They don't have those dudes.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It's like that Clowney excuses, whatever. It's like, bud, you had all the talent in the world. You got injured, and then you produced a bit, and then you got a big head and asked a ton of money. And then all of a sudden, we found out you wasn't that guy. Deal with it. Anyways, moving on to the New York Jets, those football Jets.
All right, now with their second pick, they addressed the quarterback position, right? They picked Zach Wilson with their number 2 pick. They have their franchise quarterback. The Robert Saleh era can begin with a clean quarterback. So, they got a few options here. We're thinking they can add pieces on offense, whether it's another weapon, maybe like a pass catcher. They could add a running back, maybe. They could add some support. Yeah, yeah. But they have the luxury of picking again at, 34. Yeah. So even if they pass on a running back now, could a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, could one of them be available at 34? Absolutely. So it's not like they have to pick one now.
There's a little something that probably affected your pick here. Did you know? I think it was for like at least the final 5 games, maybe more. The New York Jets started all rookies at cornerback.
No kidding. No, didn't know that.
And now, even with Brian, I think it's Brian Poole walking out the door, they're very slim in that secondary there. The only returning guy that they have that wasn't a rookie, I believe, is Marcus May. Just saying.
Yeah, they're able to retain him. Now, that's the direction I'm going. You're thinking pick number 1 for him, number 2 overall. They gave Robert Saleh the franchise quarterback. Now, Saleh's a defensive guy. You got to go defense here.
And he's not just a defensive guy. He's a Legion of Boom type guy.
He is. So what we're going to do is with the 23rd pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York High-Flying Jets select Greg Newsome, cornerback, Northwestern. Man, did you ever think that there would be a year where you'd have 2 Northwestern players drafted in the first rounds?
Hey, I mean, miracles cease to amaze me. A North Carolina guy went number 2 overall. Go figure that.
Oh, how's that working out? Yeah. Yeah, so New York High-Flying Jets, they add a piece to their secondary, and they could still add a veteran piece like a Richard Sherman, who's very familiar with Robert Saleh in free agency after the draft, kind of add some leadership and a veteran presence to that secondary. So I think Robert Saleh is very happy with this first rounds.
Not too shabby so far.
Nope.
If we're picking for him.
I think we're doing excellent. Okay, I think we're doing excellent.
Anyways, all right, onward bound to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to my Steeler fan buddies out there, what's up? Your team got a lot of holes. Like, y'all let a lot of players walk out the door. Not a single one of them was named Ben Roethlisberger. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, They just lost Marquise Pouncey to retirement.
Alejandro.
Matt Filer, they lost to free agency. Alejandro Villanueva, they lost to free agency. They lost 60% of their offensive line.
And then the defense.
The defense lost Bud Dupree. I don't think it's going to be a significant loss. Not in the sense he didn't do anything. He performed very well.
Bud Dupree. It's not just
right,
Bud Dupree.
Right. But Pittsburgh is very blitz happy, so I think his numbers may have been a little bit inflated because of their blitzing scheme. But you still got T.J. Watt back there. You still have Minkah Fitzpatrick. So you still have some really solid pieces on that defensive side of the ball. Now, can you add to it?
But what is it? Was it one of the only corners that they kept was an aging?
Yeah, they lost pieces to their second.
What?
Yeah, they lost a couple pieces to their secondary this offseason as well.
So I mean, there's some stuff going on, but I think the defense should be fine for the most part. Where I'm worried is offensive line. They bring Ben back, which means they think they could run something back, which if you're bringing Ben back, you need to protect him. He ain't the Ben of old where he's going to, throw someone off him and run for a bunch of yards. This dude's losing a lot of his athletic ability. You need to give him time. So I'm going to give him somebody feisty, somebody nasty. So with this pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle, Oklahoma State. This is a Pittsburgh type guy. He's dirty, he's nasty, he's willing to get in the mud, he's going to tear it up. Now, some people also thought you could have went running back, because isn't James Conner gone also?
Yeah, James Conner just went to Arizona. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a running back go in the first rounds, even as high as 24 to Pittsburgh, if we want to say that's high.
I know a different runner that I think is more of a Pittsburgh type runner.
So your top three are going to be in no particular order. You have Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, you have Javonte Williams.
Williams is who I'm talking about. I think Williams is more of your Pittsburgh type runner.
The one who just plows people over and breaks tackles all game long? Yeah.
Great
yeah.
Great body control, go through people, can catch. But moving on.
Moving on, we are traveling to the state of Florida because the Jacksonville Jaguars are back on the clock. Now, they have this pick because of the Jalen Ramsey trade a couple years ago. And this is what? How many consecutive years that the Rams haven't had a first-round pick? Womp womp. But here we are. They've picked their franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall. So with the second pick, I have a theme going when it's my second pick for the team. First pick offense, second pick defense. So I'm really looking at the defensive side of the ball. Now, do they have to go defense? Not necessarily, depending on how they feel about the players here. They have so much flexibility because just like the Jets, who have a pick early in round 2, Jaguars are back up at 33. What is that, 8 picks away? Yeah, right. You got a lot of flexibility here. And then you got 45 after that. I mean, they have 4 of the top 45 picks in this draft. So you're thinking you could address the offensive line. You could address pass catcher, whether that's a tight end, whether that's a wide receiver. But again, I'm looking at defensive side of the ball here. So even though you just signed safety Rashad Jenkins this offseason, you still need some help at that safety position. And in this draft, there is only one player who is going to be worthy of being drafted in the first rounds. So with the 25th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Trayvon Morrig, safety, TCU.
Nice. I mean, Jacksonville is in that position where, I mean, they could go almost anywhere. So
yep, and what makes it better?
See what they do.
Yeah, it's not like they have to win right now because, like we talked about before, first year for Urban Meyer, he doesn't have high expectations. You got your franchise quarterback. I'm sure they have not a slow plan, but I'm sure he's going to have a little bit more time than any other new first-time head coach would have. So you got time. Yeah. You can build.
Moving on. Here comes my second juicy one of the draft.
Oh.
So the Cleveland Browns are up. And no matter how you slice it, how you feel about them, the Cleveland Browns, with the moves that they've made and where they're at now, it's a franchise. They don't have many holes, man. They could go anywhere in this draft.
Yeah.
Their offensive line is looking pretty good. Depending on how you feel about Baker's Baker. I mean, with the receivers, they should be getting Odell back. And so unless they trade him, I mean, Odell's there. Their tight end group is pretty solid. The running back group is incredible. Like, what is there to pick on offense, really? Then, all right, so we look at the defensive side. I think here you got to
look at defense.
All right, so we look at that secondary. They've got young guys at secondary, and like you displayed in previous pods, they brought in a bunch of guys mostly from the Rams, and they shored up that secondary. Then, okay, let's look at the defensive line. I mean, you just signed Clowney. You already had a solid defensive line, and now you bring Kalani into that. So I do possibly have them reaching, depending on how you feel about this player. I'm higher on this player than you are. This will bring a lot more speed to their linebacker group, and I think the local people will really like this pick. So, in the 2021 NFL Draft, with the 26th pick, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Baron Browning, linebacker out of Ohio State.
Wow.
And I had to pick.
Now that is surprising.
Because every year there's a pick like this. But but in those years it's usually Seattle, and Seattle's usually picking the guy who doesn't have that pedigree. Baron Browning is a talented guy who has been shooting up charts in terms of drafts. He could be the third, fourth linebacker, and now we have 4 linebackers taken in this draft, I believe.
Let's see, we have Browning. You took Ojulari. That's 2. I took Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Zaven
Ojulari's
Collins.
not a linebacker. I'm not counting him I count him as an edge.
Yep, then that would be 4 linebackers. Yeah. Definitely the most surprising pick, I think.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's just when you see it, you're like, wait, what? What? But it's just like, where else are you going?
Yeah, all right. All right.
Am I going to pick up a Samuel Cosme to sit on the bench?
They do have the flexibility. They could build depth. Yeah.
Yep. But, all right, moving on.
All right, it's not going to hate on that pick too much longer. All right.
I mean, you can hate all you want. Go on a soapbox if you like.
Nope. I'm good. Again, Cleveland's got that flexibility. They've done a really good job of building their roster, and what they did this offseason, let them come into the draft and say, hey, we're in a spot to pick the best available players. It's not like we have any big needs, so we can do best available.
And I'm just saying, with Browning, with the guys around him, you could let him fly to the ball.
The skills there. You're gonna have your critics say that you overreached. You could have had him in the 2nd, 3rd, even 4th round, depending on how he fits in someone's board.
But Browning's not getting out of the 2nd round.
But
I guarantee it.
Cleveland only looks like fools if it doesn't work out. If it works out and he's an all-pro linebacker, they're going to be considered geniuses. So.
Browning's not getting out of the top 40 picks. I guarantee it.
Ooh, guaranteed. Now we really got to tune in for draft night. 2nd round, 1st and 2nd round to see where Baron Browning falls.
All right, who you got up next?
All right. So we are going to the Baltimore Ravens next. So, Baltimore is probably kicking stuff around their war room right now, throwing stuff in anger, because at this point, you're upset because your division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, just took the offensive tackle that you had your eyes on, Tevin Jenkins. And tackles very much in need, because you have Orlando Brown Jr. no longer being happy, wanting out of town because he plays the right side, but he wants to play the left side. But you also have this guy named Ronnie Stanley Jr. over there who's pretty phenomenal. So you can only play one of them on that left side, and they're sticking with Stanley. So Brown wants out. You need a new right tackle. Tevin Jenkins is off the board.
Not even just that, though. Then also, when you're thinking about a secondary pick, the Tennessee just took Aziz Alouara. What's his last name?
Ojulari.
So now it's like, wait, we can't even add to our pass rush now?
Man, you're thinking, all right, how much do we need edge? Because Yannick Ngakwe's gone, Matt Judon's gone. You're keeping a couple people in-house. You're really hoping that you're going to repeat the same thing where you retain people, they perform well for the next contract. Wide receiver could be in play here. Yeah, you sign Sammy Watkins as your number one, but Sammy's got to be healthy in order for him to produce and be worth it.
Not to mention,
So,
Jacksonville took Tevin. That's another player I could see the Ravens covering.
Trayvon, yeah, absolutely. Someone for the secondary. So Baltimore's like, man, we really got to trade back, but these guys aren't letting us trade because it's their dueling mock where no trades are allowed, so we're stuck here. So
and they got no takers. We're in a world where they have no takers.
So here, like, all right, we have to look back at that edge. We just lost two really good people over this offseason, so we're going to end the slide, right? Because on my board, I had this guy as my number one edge rusher, and there's been, what, 2 edge people off the board so far?
Yep, I picked them both.
Yeah. Yeah, you're taking all the edge and neglecting my number one guy. I get it. We viewed him differently.
Edge, but that's
but then that gives
I don't even
that
have
gives a little
labeled as an edge.
That gives them some flexibility in Baltimore.
Sometimes when you're versatile, sometimes that's a deterrent. I'm not saying this guy's not talented, but I do poop on defensive players from this school.
Ooh, well, yeah. I mean, my team has Rashawn Gray. So
I think you just let the cat out the bag by giving the name.
Yeah. Yep. We're going to University of Michigan. So with the 27th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens are selecting Kwity Paye, defensive ends, Michigan. So they're really hoping he doesn't fall into that category of jack of all trades, master of none. They're really hoping he avoids that category.
And it is a scary thought that he could. He's in that tweener body type. He's most likely going to play 5 technique. And for those who don't know what 5 tech is, when it comes to a 3-4 defense, you have a nose tackle in the middle, the 2 ends on each side. That's the 5 tech. Yeah, giving a little class today.
Yeah, you guy who lines up outside the offensive tackles. Yeah, we're educating folks now.
So that's why I didn't put him at edge. I put him more as a defensive lineman because he is more of that tweener guy, like that Rashawn Gary type. It's just, will he be Rashawn Gary? Because, Gary was extremely talented coming out.
It was.
All right, coming up.
All right.
This is the New Orleans Saints, another team that I don't think has two. If you think Jameis Winston can be their answer at quarterback, it's not Taysom Hill. Don't even bring him up. Then they don't have that many holes. They could go for a pass catcher here. Rondell Moore is out there. And he fits their mold of guys that could play opposite Michael Thomas. But for my flavor, they lost some guys on defense. And they'll have to replace something here. So I have them going for a pass rusher. And I'm going with their mold, which is more of an athletic type guy. New Orleans goes for those athletic type linebackers that can fly around, that have that height, weight, speed combination going on. So with the 28th pick in the 2021 draft, the New Orleans Saints pick Jason Owa, edge, out of Penn State. Now, I know some people will say, but Sean, he didn't record a single sack last year. And if anybody knows anything about me, I'm not that dude. You do not measure pass rushing ability from sacks. You rush it by pass rush rate. How much did they rush the passer? How many times did they get the passer off their mark? How many times did they affect the play where someone else got a sack because of what they did? How many hits did they get? There are other things that come involved here. Not to mention, this guy's very raw. He's only played football 2 years. Also with that, I think there's only 2 players that have come out with his experience that did not record a single sack their final year. Those 2 players are Jason Pierre-Paul, had a pretty good year, and then the Lions guy, Ezekiel Ansah. Not too shabby of a guy to get with the 28th pick.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm a big fan of Jason Owe because he was my number 4 edge.
I know.
Back we did our edge series. I was high on him. I like him.
I had to learn a little bit more about him.
Glad you're coming around.
I'm getting there. You know, I mean, you pair him with that guy that you think is a bust. And, I mean, maybe things get a little bit better for the both of them as they develop.
Yep. Trey Hendrickson will... No, wait, no. Trey Hendrickson's gone. He was in New Orleans, so he's going to take over that role.
You know who I was talking about. All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Sean's fever dream pick right here.
Yes.
This is a pick that's not going to happen. I'm just going to say this right now. It ain't happening. The Packers don't do this. It has not been done.
They sure don't.
When's the last time that this happened? When's the last time they made a pick like this in the first round?
Well, let me go through my spiel real quick, okay? You're ruining all my notes I had prepared. So let's be real here. The 2020 draft was underwhelming, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
We can't afford for that to happen again. Now, unless this is the final season with Aaron Rodgers, and Gutekunst is planning a rebuild, you gotta do different. You gotta do better. So, something I'll be keeping an eye on is, will they move up in the first round? Because in the 3 years that Brian Gutekunst has been general manager, they've moved up in all 3 drafts. 2018, they started at 14. They traded back to 27 with New Orleans. They traded back up to Seattle. They got themselves Jair Alexander. Great pick. Turned out to be one of the top corners.
I just thought of something real fun.
What's that?
So, there's a team that had a predicament, as we said, because of players being off the board. And this is a team that would probably be very willing to move back. They've done it before. And they picked a player that you'd like more than who you're going to pick. And this would be the Indianapolis Colts. And
yeah, the Colts went.
Satisfying would that be to see the Bears take Bateman and then have the Pack trade up to
Bears
get Waddle.
Pass on Waddle, take Bateman. Packers draft up immediately, take Waddle. That would be very satisfying. But if my scenario is not going to happen, your scenario is definitely not going to happen.
I'm just asking how much you like it.
Very much so. The answer is very much so. So 18, they move up for Alexander. 19, they move up for Darnell Savage. 20, they moved up for Jordan Love. So, okay. So after watching the NFC Championship game, you're thinking, man, I'd really love to see an upgrade at cornerback because, a couple things. Kevin King I think he was nursing a back injury, wasn't playing full strength. But man, it's heartbreaking to watch. So I'm thinking, I would love for somebody like Greg Newsome to fall to the end of the first round, but I had to pick honestly, and And well,
But
so
at
I
the
took
same
Greg
time, I
Newsom
don't-
with the Jets right before.
at
Right,
the
I
same
couldn't
time,
just
I don't
sandbag
think
the
Newsom
draft.
really fits. I know we said he's scheme versatility, but there's a different corner that I like more for Green Bay. It's just he won't be there in the second when you're picking, and it's too early
No,
to pick him here.
I could see somebody like Asante Samuel
That's who I
Jr.
was talking about.
But yeah, like if you can trade back a couple of picks to get him, that would be ideal. But we're not doing that because we're not trading here.
This is true.
So you have some holes in the offensive line. You just lost Corey Linsley, the best center in the game. You just lost Rick Wagner. David Bakhtiari is coming back from an injury, so we're not even sure when he's going to start the season. So you got some holes on the offensive line, and you could use a linebacker because Green Bay needs some help tackling. So you could use an off-ball linebacker.
Is it too early for a linebacker? Is it too early for Nick Bolton?
Nick Bolton, maybe Jamin Davis, who's been gathering a lot of steam in this as the past couple of weeks. He's been getting a lot of attention, so maybe he sneaks into the first round. Could they add a disruptor on the defensive line, like a Christian Barrymore, taking that first interior defensive lineman off the ball?
Which is in their wheelhouse. Yeah. They've been known to do it, but they switch defensive coordinators.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen here. At least not in my scenario. So, pop quiz. Who was Green Bay's number 2 wide receiver last year? Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
It was.
Their number 2 wide receiver.
It was supposed to be Alan Lazard.
Yep. Statistically, it was MVS because he played most, if not all, of the season. Alan Lazard was missing time, so he didn't get as much. So here I am going to add a wide receiver for the first time since they took Javon Walker. Now, it's 2002 was the last time they took a wide receiver in the first rounds.
That's ridiculous.
The last time they drafted a wide receiver was 2018 when they took the trio of Jamon Moore in the 4th, Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the 5th, and Equanimous St. Brown in the 6th. So they haven't drafted a wide receiver since 2018.
Depth chart.
And they have that mold. They like that tall wide receiver because all 3 of those guys, I think, were about 6'4".
Tall and fast.
Tall and fast. So here we go. It's not going to happen, but in my world, I'm the GM right now. I'm making it happen. With the 29th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Terrace Marshall, wide receiver, LSU. The crowd goes wild. I get carried out on people's shoulders, and we win the Super Bowl. The ends.
Hold on, son. Just back that up just a little bit. I'm not saying the crowd's not going to like it, but don't be polishing your Lombardi just yet. Just saying. But it's a good pick. It would be a good pick. I just don't believe it's going to happen because the Packers
Neither do I.
Tight.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen either, but I made it happen here, and that's what counts for me right now.
You going to speak it into existence?
I'm going to try. I'm going to post it like every day on social media. Terrace Marshall.
Sorry, so next up we have Buffalo. Then this Buffalo, great stadium to visit if you've never been to it. It's really interesting because it's built below sea level. I don't know if you knew that.
No, educate me more on geography.
You walk out into the upper deck. That's crazy.
Interesting.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like it though. I kind of like that.
Yeah, apparently they decided to build down. Anyways, so I could go multiple places here. I don't think pass catcher or weapon because I think they're solid at running back. I mean, maybe tight end, but I think the tight ends are pretty solid. They just signed Emmanuel Sanders, I believe.
It's pretty similar to the Cleveland pick. Cleveland's pretty good on offense, and I think Buffalo's the same way. If anything in the first round for Buffalo, you're thinking, could they be one of the teams to sneak a running back?
True, but
But
I mean, they took a running back last year. They took one the year before. I don't
yep,
see
they have a
that.
history of drafting running backs, so I don't think offense needs
secondary. Is it a little too
much attention
early
on
for
the
them?
first day.
For secondary to get a guy like, let's say, Asante Samuel. They re-signed the linebacker. Who was it?
Matt Milano.
Matt Milano. So I don't see them going linebacker here. Defensive line, they could definitely put a Barmore in here. But
For years they've been asking, who can they pair with Jerry Hughes? Who can they pair with Jerry Hughes? Do they address edge rusher here?
no. Here, they're going to go and they're going to continue to help Josh Allen out. And this time they're going to do it with offensive linemen out of Alabama, Lander Dickerson. They're going to get a nasty dude for that offensive line to make that even better there, so that they can contend with their true rival in that AFC right now, those Chiefs. They have to beat Kansas City. And to beat Kansas City, they need to outscore Kansas City. Doing defensive moves is not going to help them stop Patrick Mahomes. Oh, also, just to make a little rant, this came from a Washington fan earlier today. I'm not going to say where I heard it, but this was nonsense. This Washington fan tried to boast about Tyler Heineke and how they gave the Bucs the biggest test of the whole playoffs, and how that Bucs defense normally holds this, and this person, she went on to say how they did even better than the Chiefs did. The Chiefs' O-line was decimated. You cannot make statements like that without context. Context matters. I'm sorry, Washington ain't outscoring the Chiefs. And Buffalo hasn't been outscoring the Chiefs. That's why Buffalo's got to figure out a way to keep Josh Allen upright so they can score more points to outscore the Chiefs. And that's what this move's about.
Ooh, speaking of nonsense, you want to know some nonsense I was listening to and reading during the week? Some of the nonsense included a rumor, and this is not a very credible source, a rumor that the Packers are going to trade Aaron Rodgers to San Francisco for the number 3 pick. I'm like, really? Really? But I did hear another rumor, again, not very credible sources here, but a lot of chatter because it's smokescreen season. But another one was the Packers are going to trade quarterback Jordan Love and their first-round pick to New England for that number 15 pick. Now, that one I wouldn't mind so much.
But it ain't happening.
Wouldn't mind that one if it came true. Yeah, it's not going true, but I wouldn't mind if it did.
Moving off of nonsense, on to the Kansas City Chiefs.
So, we were just speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Buffalo's got to add more to the offense, be able to put points on the board. And here we are looking at Kansas City, a team who couldn't put points on the board in the biggest game of the season, the Super Bowl.
Why couldn't they?
Why? Because you lost both of your tackles, right? Both of them were out for injuries. Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz.
Didn't they lose their center also?
God.
I think 4 of their offensive linemen were out. 4.
They might have been. It was definitely a very weak group they were rolling into the Super Bowl with. So, and it was a bold move this offseason when Kansas City said, you know what, Eric Fisher, we're going to release you. Mitchell Schwartz, we're going to release you. However, they did sign Joe Thuney. So, who I still suspect could be kicked to the outside because you don't pay a guard that amount of money.
They signed someone
Not
else.
in my world, right?
They signed someone else.
So offensive line is in need. So is putting pressure on the quarterback and tackling, but maybe they can think edge, maybe they can think off-ball linebacker, but you're thinking the talent drop-off for tackle is going to get pretty steep because we already have several off the board now. There's not left here. They're picking again in the 60s. They don't have much time. So we're thinking, all right, we got to go for a tackle. Offensive line is a need. So with the 31st pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Samuel Cosmi, tackle from University of Texas.
Nice pick. Now, if it all works out, Sam Cosmi could be the second best tackle in this draft. He's
Could
got
be.
that much ability. He's just that raw.
All right, so we just talked about the team that was a runner-up in the Super Bowl. You get to conclude the first round with the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And with the Buccaneers now, what we know now, they're a pretty stacked team. So, I mean, where are they looking at? I mean, obvious place that you could say is maybe offensive linemen. But I don't know if they're going to be looking there. I think they might do some forward thinking here. They've got some guys on the defensive side of the ball on 1-year deals.
Ooh, you have your franchise. You have your franchise player on a 1-year deal, right?
They have some fast catchers on technically 1-year deals.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to wide receiver. Wide receivers get pumped out every year. You can get a wide receiver in this draft later on. I'm going to have them take, with the 32nd pick overall in the 2021 draft, the first defensive tackle comes off the board, and Christian Barmore, defensive tackle, Alabama. Pair him up with Vita Vea. You know, Sue is getting old. Sue's on a 1-year deal. Have that rotation until Barmore's up to speed. Then you get that young Barmore, Vita Vea, which Shaq Barrett, and Jason Pierre-Paul on the outsides. Oh, that's a nasty front there.
Man, because you're thinking, isn't Tampa Bay bringing back all of their starters from last season? Like they have everybody back. They have no real need necessarily, at least not for this upcoming season. Adding Barmore to that defensive line.
I made a thought to possibly go with Najee Harris. But I said no. They've got running backs that are very sufficient in that offense. Ronald Jones has made plenty of strides. I do not understand why we knock him so much.
That's a nice pick, though. Christian Barmore. That's nice.
All right, so let's recap this draft in its entirety. So, with the first overall pick, we got Trevor Lawrence, Clemson. Then we have Zach Wilson out of BYU. Justin Fields, Ohio State. To complete the historic run on quarterbacks, Trey Lance, North Dakota State. Then Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Jamar Chase, wide receiver, LSU. Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. Kyle Pitts, tight end, Florida. Give you your McCorkle. Mac Jones, QB, Alabama. That's 5 QBs in the top 10.
I think that might be a first in history, too, where you have 5 quarterbacks going to the top 10.
I think so. Patrick Surtain II, cornerback, Alabama.
Going at number 10, so we're making history 3 ways because now we have the latest drafted defensive player at number
Rashad
10.
Slater,
Man,
offensive tackle, Northwestern. Now we got another son of a NFL player, J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. Then we have Elijah Vera Tucker, offensive lineman, USC. Jalen Phillips, edge, out of Miami. Micah Parsons, linebacker, Penn State. Caleb Fairley, cornerback, Virginia Tech. Christian Darrisaw, left tackle out of Virginia Tech. Xavier Collins, linebacker, Tulsa. Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, hybrid player out of Notre Dame. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver, Minnesota. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, Alabama. Aziz Alawala, dang it, I was doing so good.
you were doing good.
Ojulari,
Ojulari.
edge out of Georgia. I was doing real good there for a minute. Greg Newsome II, cornerback, Northwestern. Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle, Oklahoma State. Trayvon Morrig, safety out of TCU. Baron Browning, linebacker, Ohio State. Kwity Paye, defensive lineman out of Michigan. Jason Owa, edge out of Penn State. Final stretch here. Terrence Marshall, wide receiver, LSU.
Woo!
Landon Dickerson, offensive guard, Alabama. Samuel Cosme, offensive tackle, Texas. Christian Barmore, defensive tackle, Alabama.
You know, if I don't mind saying so myself, this is a pretty good mock draft we put together.
I think it's pretty solid.
We should just hand this over to Roger Goodell right now.
Only one name throughout that whole thing. I was worried. Especially with Owusu Koromoa. I thought I was going to just... But Aziz got me. My top edge rusher got me.
He's gotten you every week.
All right, well, that's the mock draft. That's all we got for you this week, folks.
Yeah.
Next week we might have some contention because we're going head to head.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our own mocks and it's in competition mode. Got bragging rights coming, son.
Exactly. If you guys want to play at home too, you can play as well. What you do is you just put together a mock. Are we doing 15 or 16? I think I said
let's do the full
16
half.
earlier, but we normally do 15. Full half. All right, we're gonna do the top 16.
We know what we're talking about.
So fake it till you make it. Got it. Alrighty. So how you play is simple. You just put together a mock draft that you think is going to happen. You pick the team, you pick the player at the position. You can factor in trades if you want. That's all up to you. You can say the Chicago Bears are trading to number 1 and they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. You can absolutely do that. Now, would you be wise to do that? Probably not. But you can. So keep that in mind. So how it works is you're matching up the player to the team with the pick. If you match all 3, if you get the player, the pick, and the team correct, you get 5 points for that. But that's not the only way that we award points. Because sometimes we have the right player to the right team, or we have the right player to the right draft position. but maybe it's different because of a trade, or we factored in a trade that didn't happen, so we only got 2 of the 3. Well, if that's the case, you still get 3 points for it. So this whole comprehensive scoring is that a way that we can get more points. So it's not just, oh, I got 3, you got 4. That's pretty
Yada yada.
yeah, it's not as exciting. So now we gave more ways to get points. So even if you have people close to the draft position, you still get points for it. If you want to play, submit your mock to us. I'll do the scoring for you. We'll keep track of everything, see if you can beat us two professional amateurs right here.
All right. That's all she wrote for this week. Sean, your words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. Green Bay, don't screw this up.
I'm going to keep it simple this week. When making sports bets, make sure it is not from a place of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
That's a recipe for disaster.